It is our favorite day of the week because this is when we get to talk to folks on our Instagram about all the amazing projects that they are working on all around the world. I'm Jessica Lauretti, director of the Anthem Awards. If you don't know, the Anthem Awards is brought to you by the Webby Award, the purpose and mission driven, honoring purpose and mission driven work by brands, nonprofits, and individuals all around the world. We launched our second annual Anthem Awards. Our call for entries are now open, and actually our first early entry deadline is coming up in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So if you haven't entered your projects yet, you better get them in fast. We got 2 more weeks here till the close of our early entry deadline. If you are looking for any information about the Anthem Awards, you can go to anthemawards.com. We have tons of information on our social channels as well. You can email us, you can call us, you can DM us. If you're confused about the categories, if you're confused about how it's set up, just give us a call and we're happy to talk you through and help you get your entries in. We want to see all of your amazing work. All right, I'm going to add our moderator to the thread. So if folks are out there and you have questions, comments, you want to participate in the conversation, please do. This is all about that, having a great conversation here today. So without further ado, let me welcome Álvaro Melendez, CEO of CRANT. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jessica, for the invitation, and very happy to share some time here with all of our friends that are connecting right now.
Awesome. Also, congratulations on being an inaugural Anthem Award winner.
Yeah, we're very happy. It's actually our first award entry.
Okay.
Awesome. We're a new company, so we looked we looked for what is an award that really represents what we want to stand for, what we want to be recognized for. And that's how we found you guys and entered. And, we're very happy when we heard that we were a winner.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, thanks so much for being a part of our community and what we're building, trying to really change what we as a society think is worthy of an honor and recognition. So thank you for that. All right, so tell us your story. First of all, where are you in the world joining us today?
So right now I'm in Miami.
Oh, nice. How is it? Yeah. Hot down there?
It's not too hot today for Miami standard, right?
Right. Summer in Miami.
but yeah, that's where we are at. That's where we started the company. But now our team is really in Colombia and New York and everywhere. So
awesome, amazing. Well, that's great. So tell us your story. How did you? What's your background? Where did you get started? What led you to start CRANT?
Yeah, so I'm a native Colombian, and lucky for me, my dad had a job that sent him to different places in the world. So I was most of my life, living somewhere else. I lived in Germany, in Mexico, in Costa Rica, different places, which of course. Made me feel, right, what it means to be an alien very, very firsthand, if you want, right? Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about that later. I studied design, and I went into creativity and into advertising, and I worked most of my life in big advertising networks like Ogilvy and BBDO and Gray and all these great companies, working for brands. And I want to say the most fascinating thing that I learned working there is really the transformational power that a brand has. Of course, not only commercial. I mean, we all know commercially a brand is very important, but not only that, like the transformational power it has in terms of society, in terms of perceptions, in terms of how people live. And when I noticed that, I was super interested into how brands do that and how we can help brands turn that impact into something positive, because it's not granted that it's going to be positive, right? But then working at the companies, I started getting frustrated because most marketing teams were just looking at like performance and selling and optimizing. So we had this great technological tools, digital media and all this stuff and all the metrics that we have there, but we were using them just to sell one more unit, spend one less dollar, you know? And I call that like this predatory marketing. We're just optimizing against profit, and that's all you're doing, optimizing against profit. Of course, that's not sustainable. Eventually, that's gonna, drain whatever resources they have. Anyway, so having seen that, I thought, hey, we should use this like really awesome technological capabilities that we have now, and put it in the service of the brand, and see the brand as a transformational unit. And that's when we started CRANT. And CRANT stands for Creativity and Technology. And we're doing that. We're using technology to help brands have a better impact in the world.
Awesome. And so are you a for-profit company or a nonprofit?
We're for-profit.
Okay. And so tell us about your winning project, the DEI tracker.
Yeah, so when we started doing this, of course, we didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
We had a vision, but we didn't know how to do it. So that's what we started saying, okay, what's the problem here? The problem is brands are wasting their like potential to have a positive impact in the world. They're wasting that. Why are they wasting that? Because they don't know how to measure it. So all the high executives, they're optimizing and they're winning their bonuses and they're making money by what they can show, and they can prove, hey, I improved this, I improved that. So since they can't really measure the brand impact, they were not interested in that, of course, right? It doesn't make sense because it was not going to drive their careers. So we thought, okay, how can we do that? So we came up with this idea of the DEI tracker. And the DEI tracker basically, for all of you folks who are maybe not as familiar with this, advertising has been around for many years. And there's been very, very smart people, building frameworks of how to create a brand. And that happened in the 50s and then the 60s, right? Now, digital didn't exist there, and the metrics didn't exist. So what we did is we took that branding theory, passed it through the lens of DEI, because DEI is a story, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, and then combined it with what we get from the like cutting edge technology. So basically, you're working with classic theory, but making it actionable through technology. So the DEI tracker is designed to help brands take control of the narrative and use their power as a brand to make the world more equitable, more inclusive, more diverse. That's what we do.
Amazing. Talk a little bit about, I think you see it everywhere. People, the past few years, really like the past decade, but more so really elevated in the past couple of years, the focus on DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion. Talk about why this is so important for brands.
Yeah. And that's actually a great question. Depending on who asks the question, the answer might be different.
Yeah.
So if it's you're a good person, the answer is going to be because brands have that transformational power, as Spider-Man says, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So you better use that power for good, and you're building a better society every day. Right? That's from that perspective, which is very moral and altruistic. Now, if you are looking for profit, then the answer would be a little different. And there will be, you know what? DI is actually really good for business. And why is it good for business? Because your audience is more diverse every day, right? Immigration and everything happening.
World.
Global, of course. We're also like in the midst of like an awakening, right? We're starting to pay attention to things that we didn't pay attention before. And that makes your audience more diverse and more conscious about it. So if you think of it from a business perspective, what are you looking for? Of course, you're looking for customers, right? That use your service or product. But then you're also looking for talent that comes and joins your company. And in the current situation, getting talent is every day more difficult. So if you want to get the best talent, you better have a good DEI strategy and a good DEI program, because otherwise they just won't join you. And the same goes for customers. So it's good for business because I like to think as this. There's the brand love. So the brand love means how much your audiences care about your brand, right? So the more they care about your brand, the easier it will be for you to turn them into customers or employees or whatever change in behavior you're looking for, right? So investing in having a high brand love is good for business. And how do you drive a high brand love? By being diverse, by looking at your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies and programming.
Break down for us, like, how does the DEI tracker work? What is it tracking? Like, what kind of reports, or I don't know, what do you like? What's the like end result of it? What do you get?
Yeah. And again, this is like a work in progress. So right now, we're looking at the highest amount of data that we can get publicly. So where is that? Social media. Right now, it's social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, even Google reviews, things like that, right? So what we're doing is we're getting that data. Since that data is public, we can look at any brand we want. So because we don't need like admin permission or anything, that data is public. Yeah. And we're also seeing how people react to certain things. And they react in the forms of a like or of a share of whatever, but they also comment. And in the comment, there's richness because it's a verbal expression of an idea. So if you get to understand what people are saying, you're going to be able to craft better messaging to address those issues or things that people like. So what the DI tracker is doing is it's understanding all that data, presenting it to you in a way that is actionable. So through a dashboard. We like to call them, this is a side note, but we like to move away from the concept of a dashboard and more into like a storyboard. Because, like the storyboard is like something more that, okay, you don't need to know a lot about technology or data. You will still be able to understand, and it will give you ideas on how you can improve your DEI programming.
That's such an awesome point, because I know so many people across a lot of different industry spaces are super fixated on data and data. But a lot of times, if you can't look at that data, understand what it's telling you, right? Like I've had roles where I've looked at stuff and I'm like, there's like a bunch of numbers and stuff, but I don't know what any of this means. Like, what is the output of this? So that's such a great point about understanding the data and understanding, what are like some actionable items to take out of it. You talked about storytelling a couple of times now. Let's talk about like, how do you really like envision this and think about the storytelling aspect of this?
Yeah. So are you familiar with Yuval Noah Harari's work?
I don't know.
Okay. So good. This guy wrote a book called Sapiens, right?
Okay.
It's like a Bible. You probably see it because it's so big. You have to see it. Anyway, this man came up with a theory, and I don't know if probably someone else did it, but I know it from him. So he says like the world we know is built upon stories.
Right.
Why? Because the form that a human being has to understand the world is through stories.
Right.
And stories, or the ability to tell stories, and stories being fiction because you can make them up, that's something that only human beings can do, like only Homo sapiens, and that's what puts us apart from every other species. And according to his theory, that's why we dominate the world. And why? Because if I tell a story and you like it and our audience likes it and thousands and millions of people like it, they will work together to accomplish that. Right? So that's something that no other species can do. So what is a story? Countries are stories, right? Someone decided, hey, this country stands for this, and this country starts here and ends here. Everyone said, yeah, we agree, that's a story. Money is a story. Religions, of course, are stories, and people, are very passionate about those stories. So, of course, brands are stories too. And if you think of Dove, I like to bring up that example because most people know that Dove used to be like a soap, and that's it. Then, 2004, they changed their positioning to celebrate real beauty because they saw there was a problem in the media world, right? And how are we perceiving beauty? And they changed that. And the effect of that is that the way that humanity looks at beauty today is different than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the brand did that. So that's why I tell you, when you think about a brand being a story and having the ability to change the world through stories, that's why DEI is so important to be understood under this train of thought.
Dove is such a great example because they're, one of the people who have been doing this for so long and really from like a genuine, authentic place that I think is done so well. And they really, as you say, have shifted the narrative, about body positivity, body imagery, all kinds of things in a way that's been completely transformative. So it's such a great example that you mentioned. Also makes me think of, there's also a Joan Didion, like a famous Joan Didion quote, we tell ourselves stories in order to live. So it's like, it is such a big part of all of our lives. Okay, so let's talk about, back to the DE&I tracker, let's talk about how is this creating positive change for communities, for underrepresented, marginalized communities, consumers, not so we see kind of obvious space for brands, but let's talk about on the consumer end as well.
Yeah. So I want to say there's two things to it. So the first thing being, sometimes, and more so in the past, DI was seen as there's like a little department that thinks about DI. Maybe they're part of human resources. Maybe they're part of, a broader customer CSR team, something like that. So a little bit like, we have to do it on the side. Yeah, it's not that important. That is changing, luckily, but still, that's a problem. So the one thing that we're achieving with the DI tracker is to give the whole corporation the understanding that, hey, DI is not a matter of a few people. DI is core to your business and to the future of your brand. Right. If you ignore this, you're gonna disappear. It's that simple. If you ignore this, you're gonna shrink. You're going to be doing bad in business. So that's one thing that is important, to give DI a proper positioning within a brand strategy. And you asked me about the marginalized communities. So, and I'm going to tell you my own example, right? If you don't see yourself represented anywhere, like in commercials, in leadership positions, I'm sorry, in I don't know, politicians, like in roles that you would like to aspire, you are telling yourself the story that this is not for me. I can't do that because I can see myself doing this, I can see myself working in, for example, if you're Colombian like I am, and we had to deal with the drug stereotype, right? So everyone thinks because if you're Colombian, you do cocaine and
Sorry, could you say that again?
Oh.
He was super interested in that, my watch.
That's how you know this is live, because
yeah. So that's a stereotype that you have to deal with. Now, for example, and this is a good example, Encanto, the Disney movie, just happened last year. A completely new perception of Colombia for the world. Now suddenly everyone in Colombia has a different story. Hey, we're not only drugs, we are also magic, and we are also this family, the Madrigals, and it's so transformational. And brands are I always think like brands have more power than governments. Brands have more power than almost anything in the world. Yeah, because they can change that. So back to the DEI thing, right? So if I ask you, Jessica, about like what do you think when I say Barbie, for example? What's the first that comes to mind?
Blonde.
Yeah, like a beautiful blonde doll, right? Now, Mattel is doing a great job with Barbie, changing that. Once they are able to change that, girls are gonna understand, I mean, girls and boys, by the way, right, are gonna understand, oh, I can be that too, like an astronaut or a race car driver. Right. If you're interested, I have a story about a race car driver that I can share.
Okay.
So, right, the world is made out of stories.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, in some countries, if you're a boy, you play with cars. If you're a girl, you play with dolls. That's like how it is.
Right.
So that story starts to build into people's mind. The result of that is, if you look at motorsport today, let's say Formula One or IndyCar or any other racing heat, it's mostly male drivers, right? And there's like this perception that for some reason that men are interested in cars and they drive better than women. Now, it turns out motorsport is one of the very few sports where women and men can compete in the same league. One of the very few, because there's no physical barrier to it. So I'm working with Tatiana Calderon. She's a female, the only female race car driver in the IndyCar, for example.
Wow.
If you think about the most iconic phrase in motorsports, it's "Gentlemen, start your engine." It's gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it shouldn't be, because you could be a lady starting your engine as well. So because we do that from the start, girls have this limiting belief that they cannot be a race car driver. So once brands start changing that with examples like with Tatiana, and they see themselves there, they say, oh, if Tatiana did it, I can do too. I can be a Colombian, I can be a woman, and I can race a car. That opens a whole new door in your mind that was closed. So I think brands have that power, like opening doors in people's mind to do that.
And just that representation, seeing someone who looks, sounds like you, and across kinds of different types of diversity as well is so important. We have a few minutes left. We're getting towards the end of our time here. Let's talk about, let me try to figure out what's a good last question. Let's talk about, how do you think about defining good storytelling, and what are like some things that brands can really take away in developing their story around DE&I?
Yeah, so my first definition of good storytelling is it must make you feel something. If you get exposed to a story and you don't feel anything, it's probably going to be a bad story. Like, you're not going to remember that. You don't remember what you learn, you remember what you feel. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that I would say is, and I heard this from a coach that I had, Tim Williams is his name, and he said, strategy is counterintuitive. So you would think, if you stand for a lot of things, you open like a big door and a lot of people are going to come to your brand. In reality, it's not like that. You have to select exactly what you stand for, and it needs to be very small, very specific. The door is going to be very small, and then that people that care about that are going to come through. So I think for storytelling, that's the case. You have to know what you stand for, and you have to stand for something very specific. You cannot stand for everything.
Everything.
Right? The Dove example, right? Real beauty. We stand for real beauty. We don't stand for well-being, no, right. Real beauty. We stand for something. So that's the thing. Once you have that, let's say you're a brand that wants to incorporate DE&I and make it core of your brand messaging, I would suggest you start with that purpose, with that positioning, promise, whatever you want to call it, and then you break your brand down into pillars. So, okay, what are my pillars? Innovation, mental health, race and ethnicity, gender identity, whatever it is, you break it down, and then you define attributes, so words or images that you want to position in each one of those pillars. So you have like this pyramid of things of the story that you want to tell, and you want to tell it consistently. brands often think, because they know their story, they think people are going to get bored of their story because they've told it so many times. It's not true. People don't pay that much attention to you.
Yeah.
So
They
you have to
don't.
tell it.
Oh, too. I mean, the reason why things are so ingrained in your brain is because you've heard them 100,000,000 times. You know, that repetition is so important. It's such a key part of advertising.
Exactly. But in general, for example, if you look at the Disney movies, they're very similar in what they tell, but the how is different. So I think that's important for a brand. Your story may be the same. The how you tell it, it can have different angles. You know, you can always be creative. You can always be interesting. And I feel like that's the most important thing for a company, you know, like understanding that if I want to respect the people that I'm dealing with, I want to offer something that is interesting for them, that is valuable, that generates some positive impact.
Yeah, I think it's so important for brands to really think about, you know, not just the what of they're doing, but the why. And if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, who's a great author and thought leader, he has a very, you know, famous TED Talk where he talks about nobody cares about what you do, they only care about why you do it. And that's sort of like the modern lens of marketing and advertising, you know, sort of adopted by Steve Jobs and then many others afterwards with Apple. But, you know, it's like you have to stand for something, but then there also has to be a reason why. It's less like you don't just stand for something because like you're supposed to now. You know, it has to have some connection.
I mean, that's what makes it genuine.
Right.
Right. You have to have blood in the game. You know, why are you standing for this? Okay, because this happened to you, or because you believe in this.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Do you have anything, any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with? You want to share your website and some social channels, ways people can find out more about you?
Yeah, sure. So I think if people are listening here, one message that I would like to give is we talked a lot about like big brands and commercial brands, but each one of us is a brand, a personal brand. So this is not something that other people will resolve. We all have to do it. So I think I invite people to think about themselves as a brand and like, what is the image that I'm transmitting? Am I generating a positive impact in the world with what I'm saying, with what I'm doing? That is very important, number one. Number two, if they're interested about this topic, they can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm mainly active under my name, Álvaro Melendez. And our company is called CRANT. So you can find us there at www.crant, CRANT.ai. That's very important. Most people think it's not, it's AI. Yeah.
Not a doc. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for all of the work that you are doing. So important.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jessica. And thank you everyone for joining. And I hope you have a good rest of your awesome Thursday.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you for everyone in the audience. Make sure you check out CRANT.ai. Make sure you are telling brands out there in the world that you interact with that diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability and social impact issues are important to you and therefore are important to them. And that is a core part of their business and should be moving forward. Again, the Anthem Awards, we have our call for entries for our second annual Anthem Awards are open now. If you're working on purpose and mission-driven work, which I guess almost everyone on this Instagram Live probably is out there, please enter your projects. We want to see your work. Go to anthemawards.com. You have 2 weeks from tomorrow to take advantage of our best pricing with our early entry deadline. We do also offer scholarships for folks who are interested. Please email us, DM us. You can call us. All the info is on the site, anthemawards.com. Alvaro, you're amazing. Thank you for everything. Congratulations on being a winner and congratulations on your company. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Ciao,
Okay.
ciao.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.